California were a country, it would be the 58th largest in the world and is of similar size to Iraq, Sweden, or Morocco. It is approximately 900 miles from top to bottom, with 4 distinct geographical regions including coastal, mountain, valley, and desert. And we saw it all. So grab your gas station snacks and come along with us for our epic road trip through California and its renowned national parks. Wheels up!
We're gonna be two hearts running wild.
Welcome to the Meander Travel Podcast. This is episode 34, and we are thrilled that you are listening today. We are Julie and Tony.
Hello.
And we decided to leave the rat race last year in search of adventure while we have this open window before our future grandchildren arrive or before our parents may need our time and attention.
We have traveled all over the world, but today's episode is a destination a little closer to home. Yes, we love the history and culture of Europe, exploring the rainforest and beaches of South America, or taking wild safaris in Africa, but we also appreciate the raw beauty and astounding national parks that we have right here in the United States, and I actually have a goal to try and see them all.
Oh, brother. Okay, that'll take a while. But so California is really blessed in this department with national parks. They have 9. That is the most of all of the states. Alaska is the next closest with 8. So on this road trip, we cover 5 of its 9 parks. And these are probably some of the most popular and the most accessible ones. Probably the ones that you are most likely to go to as well. So we'll share some important advice for each park, along with some interesting facts that you may not know.
The parks that we missed in California were the Channel Islands, Death Valley, Pinnacles, and Lassen Volcanic. Although I have been to the Lassen before, last year, we may mention a little bit later, but that one we didn't get to on the trip either.
Unless we forget.
Unless we forget.
have a lot to cover.
By the way, strap on your seatbelts.
Well, we told them to go get gas station snacks.
Yeah, you're going to need some snacks. This one's going to be a long one.
Yeah, no kidding. So not only is this going to be long, but our road trip was long. It was a total of 11 days. But
11 days of driving.
Oh, man, okay. But we did visit some friends along the way. So if you could squeeze it in, well, you could probably squeeze it into a week if you had to, but you would really be in the car a lot. We traveled, I think we calculated like over 2,000 miles, something like that. And we really kind of only popped into each park. You know, some parks we spent a few hours at or a little bit longer, but a lot of them were kind of brief. So if you're able to extend your time longer, then that would make for a better pace and it would allow you a more in-depth experience. So we did a south to north trip. So the national parks that we're going to cover in order are Joshua Tree, Sequoia, Kings Canyon, Yosemite, and then Redwood, with a bonus dip into Oregon for Crater Lake.
How can you not?
Yeah.
Along our route, we also popped into some state parks that are well worth mentioning and saw some national monuments and national landmarks. There is so much to see in this area that this part of the country is ridiculous. That it is important to note that we did this trip in early April, and that is a tad cooler in the southern portion, but still had some snow in some places to the farther north and up into Oregon. The early spring timing meant mountain road closures and parts of the park were unavailable to us that they hadn't even yet opened up for the season. And sometimes they don't open them up until June and July sometimes if they have a lot of snowpack. So depending on the weather situation, you always got to be checking and on where you're going because the heat and the cold can be dangerous at different times of the year. So, and also sometimes perhaps unexpected. Like you wouldn't expect it to be snowy in one spot and hot in the other on the same road trip.
Mm-hmm. You need a lot of clothes.
Yep. Yeah,
a lot of variety
that
of
was probably
clothes.
one of the hardest things to do is to pack for this thing. We didn't know how much we should take.
No kidding.
You also don't want to be disappointed, because if you had big plans to see something and then all of a sudden you get there and realize that it's not open because it's not going to be for a couple months, but you thought, hey, the park is open because you can get through the front gate. It just reminds me of, sorry, folks, park's closed. The moose out front should have told you. That's exactly what you do. You drive all the way across country, you get there, and then John Candy says, nope, don't break out a gun.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. So, this is hysterical. So we began our road trip in Phoenix because we'd been visiting family before that. So we picked up a rental car at like 10 a.m. and then we headed west. We did have to pull over briefly in a parking lot because Tony made us do a really dumb impersonation of the Blues
Wasn't
Brothers.
dumb. It was
It was
awesome.
dumb for our socials. So if you want to see that hysterical little bit that we did, then go for it. So we had just over, 3 hours to go before we reached our first national park, Joshua Tree.
I think anybody that's seen the Blues Brothers can recite almost verbatim getting into the cars and say they got a road trip. Guys know this one.
I can say, and when you say anybody,
and guys
you mean
of
dudes.
a certain age too. Okay, fine.
Okay.
So, listen. Regarding the car rental, getting out there, this is a huge spot for a tip because gas is so expensive in California right now.
How do people live there?
I don't know. In April when we were there of 2026, it was over $6 a gallon everywhere we went for the cheapest unleaded you could get. All right, and a couple times we were at like $7.70 a gallon. Now we're in Minnesota. It's $4 the max. So our car was a Kia hybrid, and I would recommend somebody getting an electric or a hybrid. But the electric, when you're doing one of these big road trips, you're stopping a lot to get electric. The hybrid was perfect, and the reason why is that we would go up and down these mountains so much that when you're going down these long mountains, it's recharging, for the hybrid battery. And then it uses that battery while it can, and then you get to use your gas. We kind of made it a joke after a while, like, how far can we go without the car actually clicking into the gas mode and using the engine? Because we had one point where we went 13 miles downhill, 13 miles straight, all downhill, and it was regenerating the whole time. It says that we were averaging miles per gallon, 700 miles per gallon. Now, that wasn't legit because we had started to use the gas as soon as we got into the flats or started going uphill again, but it was kind of fun, and we made it a game as to how long could we go without the gas gauge ticking off.
I think you found that a lot more exciting than I did.
Yes, I
totally
geeked out on that.
It is very well worth your while to get a car
Get a
like
hybrid.
that. Holy moly. Yeah, that was a good thing. So let's talk about Joshua Tree National Park. We entered from the south side, and the entry fee is $30 a car. But if you're going to go see a lot of the parks, then you should just go ahead and splurge for the America the Beautiful National Parks annual pass. That's $80. So if you go to a lot of them, that's a good deal. But this is a physical card that you're going to have to carry with you and show. So don't lose it. Moving forward in this podcast, we will not mention the entry fees for each of the parks, as those are things that you can easily look up, and it might change with time from year to year. So just get the pass. It makes it easier. But as far as Joshua Tree, I will say that at first we were a little bit underwhelmed by the monotonous desert landscape. However, it didn't take very long before the scenery got a lot more interesting. And just so you know, fun fact, you will not see any actual Joshua trees until you are above 3,000 feet in elevation. So don't be surprised that when you drive into Joshua Tree, you don't see any Joshua trees if you're coming from that end.
Yeah, because you're not at that elevation yet. And
No.
you're like, I thought this, by the way, don't be somebody that also, because I believe there's people out there that believe Joshua Tree National Park is that there's one tree that is a big special tree in the park.
I mean, to be honest, you maybe could have put me in one of those categories.
For a while, but not after we did some research.
No.
So Joshua trees are plentiful.
There's
a
only
lot of
one
them
Joshua tree on the YouTube cover.
Right, but that's not. There's a lot of them in the park, and there's a lot of them all over California, above a certain elevation in that part of the desert. So, there's 3 main entry points to the park. Now there are, I think, I geeked out on this, 5 roads that go into the park. 2 of them are very short, and they go into just a parking lot, so you can go to do some hikes. But the 3 main drives into the park are in Joshua Tree, which is a town. That's on the north side. 29 Palms, which is on the north side as well.
Also, a weird name for a town.
I know.
Kind of cool, though.
It sounds like you're in Vegas at a hotel, a casino or something. And then there's the one on the south side, just right off of Interstate 10. And that's the one that we went in. And by doing that, we came in from the south side. We got to see all of the park along the drive all the way to the north because we stayed in 29 Palms after we left the park that night. So we got to see the entire park on the drive, except for a couple spots that were like, long drives into the park.
Some of the branches that we don't go down. So you can get a map when you enter the park, and then you can pick out a few of the trails to see depending on your time. Each section of the park really has a different look and feel to it, so you're going to enjoy the changing topography as you go. I thought it was amazing that one park could have so many different looks, from like these giant boulders to tall spires, and then the prickly desert area, and then mountains. My favorite section was the area with the massive boulders, and it reminded me a little bit of the Garden of the Gods in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really does kind of look like a playground for gods or giants or something with these huge funky rocks, but they're really fun to climb up on and hop around on and walk across. And
Speaking of climbing, a fun fact: the Joshua Tree Park is the number one park in the world for the variety of routes and options for rock climbers. So it has it's a very popular destination for climbers, and as you see them in action throughout the park, like you'll be driving along and all of a sudden you'll see somebody up on the side of a rock climbing, and you'll see the chalk marks because it's a desert, it stays there and it doesn't rain very often. You'll see chalk marks going up the side of a rock, and you're like, oh, that's one of the routes, because you can see that. But we didn't do any rock climbing, but we did enjoy doing some hiking and bouldering, which we did on the Arch Trail and the Heart Rock Trail, which features, there were some big boulders, and we did a lot of it there too.
we also stopped briefly, kind of at the beginning, at the cholla garden, but make sure that you do not get too close to those chollas because the needles literally jump out at you. Their nickname is the teddy bear cactus, and I can't for the life of me figure out why, because it's ironic to
They
say
look
the
like a big
least.
teddy bear.
No, they don't. They really look prickly. So the Discovery Trail is a relatively easy and short hike, and that gives you a little bit of everything. And then we passed by Skull Rock, or we jumped out of the car and took a picture with it. It's literally right on the edge of the road. So that one is super convenient if you aren't a hiker or you're in a hurry, but you still want to see a cool formation. If you have more time, you might want to explore Keys Ranch or even book a rock climbing tour. I've heard those are really, really fun and they come highly recommended. But I mean, we explored this park in and out in about, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours. So that wasn't really an option for us.
Skull Rock is, you got to use your imagination when you're looking at the rock. It's a formation that looks kind of like a skull. It's a big rock. But, if you want to say, hey, want to see what's in the park, it's a really quick stop. Like you can be in and out of your car and back in your car in 5 minutes if you wanted.
Yeah.
Take
The
a
only
quick
thing you
picture.
have to deal with is there's a lot of people trying to get a picture of the same thing.
And
So
they're
you
used-
kind of wait your turn and then you
Yeah.
take your little, selfie.
We should mention that we were in and out of all these parks on the same day. So same day as we did, and some days we actually did, 2 parks in one day.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do any camping, and as many of you may want to do, but for us it was not the opportunity because we just wanted to get a taste of each of these parks and what they have to offer, so that we were okay with knowing, hey, we're in and out. We weren't saying, oh, we shortchanged ourselves by not spending a week there. We knew what we were getting into when we started this road trip.
Yeah, we wanted to see as much as possible in the time that we had. We kind of prioritize quantity over quality this time around, but now we do know which parks we want to go back to
Definitely.
and might want to bring family to or friends or spend more time in. So I think it was worth our while, but yeah.
So Joshua Tree, final thoughts.
I liked it more than I expected I would. In my head, I was really thinking it was a barren desert with a tree or spindly trees. And it was really so much more than that. And I actually think it would be a really fun park to camp in, particularly kind of in that Boulder area. It's probably a lot of fun for kids. I think you
Yep.
could have a good time bringing kids there.
So, all right. Next on our route was just over 5 hours away is Sequoia National. So after we woke up from 29 Palms and got in the car for 5 hours, we then had 5 hours to talk. So we talked about Joshua Tree quite a bit on that trip and driving up, and we stopped in Barstow. But for me, I envisioned Joshua Tree to be very kind of boring and just a desert, because we've been in lots of deserts. We've seen a lot of places like that.
And while they have their beauty, it
Right.
also can get monotonous.
Right. But I didn't feel that for most of the park. I thought when you get out, if I can get out and do some serious bouldering, which we got to do by the Heart Rock, that was awesome.
And the Arch Rock. You
The
loved
Arch Rock.
that.
I loved it. I went up on top of the arch. Yeah. So if you're not afraid of heights, and then make sure it's not too windy, because
I
it
don't
was
think
windy
we
for
should
us.
advocate for anybody to
Okay,
do that.
don't do what I did. Don't climb on top of the arch. But it was
Don't.
really a cool
Don't.
photo, by the way. Anyways, so that's that. Now, Sequoia National Park is where we drove to the next day. And and this is where things started to feel really big. And I mean really big. The park is home to massive mountains, for one, here in this area of Nevadas, and even more massive trees, including, which Sequoia is known for, the largest tree on Earth by, now we got to put the air quotes up, by volume. Because everybody, you think about someone saying it's the biggest tree in the world, you always think height, but that's
Right.
not true.
There are lots of ways to define big.
Right. So by volume, the famous General Sherman tree is the largest in the world. The stats on this tree are bonkers. It stands at over 275 feet tall, which is tall,
Right.
but it's over 36 feet in diameter and over 102 feet in circumference and weighs over 4 million pounds.
And not only are those stats staggering, but they estimate its age to be around 2,200 years old or older, possibly up to 2,700 years old. They're not exactly sure. It's hard for them to kind of get an age estimate on this tree. So the park honestly feels like you're stepping into another time or another world. You go from these winding mountain roads to these quiet, towering giants, and they just make you feel tiny. But the air was cooler, and it was definitely a refreshing change from the desert because it was hot down there. But I will say, driving in, it was so sad to see how the wildfires have ripped through California, and they have literally burned down so much acreage and of these trees. And we know the forest regenerates, but I'm sure it was absolutely terrifying for the Forest Service to have some of these uber historic and famous trees in jeopardy. And in 2021, a wildfire came within 100 yards of the General Sherman. So to protect it, the firefighters removed as much of the undergrowth around it as they could, and then they actually wrapped the base of the tree in fire-resistant aluminum blankets. But through their efforts, and because of General Sherman's thick bark itself,
Which is really thick. It's
really
huge.
thick, it survived. But thousands of the giant sequoias did not. And when you're driving through, you kind of see a graveyard of trees, and it is very sad. So this is just a reminder that it's a good reason to take a trip while you can to these parks because nothing lasts forever.
Correct. What I mean, what if
Yeah.
the fire had gone and we never got to go see General Sherman? You like those bucket list things. Like, I want to go see the biggest tree in the world, right? Well, that would be gone. And then now you have to go find
Yeah.
this next. But
And the wildfires have
convenient,
been
by the
so
way.
prevalent in recent years. It's a scary thing.
so a useful tip for Sequoia is get up there as early in the day as you can or late in the day, because parking near General Sherman, which is up in the middle of the park, it can fill up very fast. And because it is still early in the year, we were able to get a spot without much hassle. We drove right in. I have this skill or luck or whatever you want to gift it is, but I always find a very, very good parking spot. And I had one of the closest ones. So a lot of people, including us, park the car, walk the short distance down the trail and see the general and then back out again. And you could easily spend a day hiking in like areas like the Congress Trail, which is nearby. And it starts right near the general there. And that meanders through all the magnificent trees as well. So there's things to do there, but people come into the park to see this tree, a lot of it.
Well, and I will say too that in the summertime, I don't think you're going to want to take a chance at necessarily getting there in the middle of the day and hoping you get a parking spot. So you might not be as lucky as Tony.
Or in summertime. Yeah.
That's what I mean, in the
especially-
summertime.
especially.
Yeah. And I really wanted to go hike the Congress Trail and kind of go through the trees a little bit, but we didn't have a schedule per se, but we knew we had so many miles to cover per day. So we didn't do that. However, if you are going to spend more time in this area, in this park, you could also hike the Morrow Rock Trail. And that's a short, but it's like a strenuous vertical hike with up to 300 feet in elevation gain up to the top of a granite dome for incredible views of the Sierra Nevada mountains. And that's kind of what you're there for. That's a beautiful region. If you want to hike that's a little bit easier but has a waterfall, you can try the Tacopa Falls Trail, or you could hike the Crescent Meadow Loop, named by John Muir as the gem of the Sierras, because what is prettier than a verdant meadow with wildflowers and then guarded by those dense groves of giant sequoias? But if you're not into hiking, you can explore it on horseback in the summer or even on snowshoes in the winter. I don't know, when I read things like this, I realize, Tony, we left a lot undone, but some of it we couldn't get to because we weren't allowed to because of the closures and stuff. But what did you think about seeing this park and the General Sherman? Was this all what you expected?
It is, because I expected to go see a big tree. Now, a lot of trees are big there, so you get to see a lot of big trees. And if you had to say, look at General Sherman and look at the 7 trees around it, yeah, it's a bigger tree, but you wouldn't go, oh my God, that's the biggest tree in the world when you're seeing all these other giant trees right around it. So
It does look bigger than the ones around it, but the ones around it are really dang big too.
So, yeah, I mean, it was impressive. I'll get into a little bit more about my thoughts about this and the next park we go to, but that's the General Sherman tree in Sequoia.
Well, you know what I think is wild is that the General Sherman tree and some of its neighbors that are hanging out there with him, they were growing steadfastly while at the same time across the ocean, Julius Caesar was stomping around. Wrap around, wrap your head around that for a second.
Yeah,
Like
that's time frame wise, that's kind of crazy.
time frame wise, yeah, it's wild.
Okay, that's wild. But speaking of its neighbors, and I mean right next door, literally connected, is Kings Canyon National Park, and this one often gets overshadowed by General Sherman over at Sequoia. But it's a short drive. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to get over to that park because you got to wind the mountain roads up in there. But when you do that, it's close. So you're gonna go see Kings
It's
Canyon.
kind of like a twofer.
It's a twofer. So, so that if Sequoia is famous for its trees, Kings Canyon is about dramatic landscapes and deep valleys and roaring rivers and towering granite cliffs. And a lot of people compare it to Yosemite like it's a little baby Yosemite, and it's just way fewer people. But it also has something else it's known for.
Yeah, another surprising fact, Kings Canyon is also deeper than the Grand Canyon in some areas. Did you know that?
Didn't know that until we did some research.
No, and unfortunately for us, we didn't get to see
Why
much of
not?
this landscape because the Kings Canyon Scenic Byway, which is Highway 180, it wasn't open yet, and it sometimes doesn't open until May. So we couldn't reach some of the more prominent areas and like the lookout points. So I didn't come away feeling like Kings Canyon was a baby Yosemite or a Grand Canyon. I didn't get that feeling. But we did get to see another general.
General Grant is the world's second largest tree, quote, by volume, and is approximately 1,700 years old and stands 268 feet tall with a 35-foot diameter at its base. These two generals are both really impressive, but if you could only see one, that would be okay because they look similar. Nice little hike to both of them. That you were talking about the drive in. If just 1 week before we were going, if we wanted to do what we did by going to General Sherman and then over to General Grant in the two parks, which is only a short drive, but it was closed because of snow, the road. So we would have had to go all the way back down, all the way out of the park, and then go around and then come back up into Kings Canyon.
Oh, forget about it.
It'd have been like 3 or 4 hours. So no, we got really lucky that we were able to take the mountain road, which you could see the snow on the side of the road where they had plowed it just recently. But so there is some. We got lucky a little bit. We could have been, because they got a lot of snow after we left too. So, in high season, it's not going to be quick or easy because the roads are dry or without snow because you got a lot of people. So you do have to do your research. Sequoia will be busier than Kings Canyon, just because it has the biggest tree, but it is less than a 10-foot height differential. So maybe pick which park has more to offer you, and as a whole, you go with that one.
Yeah, so other things to do in Kings Canyon are driving the scenic byway for sure, which we didn't get to do, so we can't tell you about it. Or you could take a hike to Mist Falls, one of the park's largest, and they have quite a few waterfalls. Or you could hike to Panoramic Point, which is a stunning overlook of Hume Lake and the High Sierras. You could also take a tour of Boyden Cavern, which is a marble cave filled with stalactites and stalagmites. Or, Tony, you'd really like to do this. You could jump off of Mirror Rock, which is a 15-foot granite diving rock. It's flat.
It's not 15 feet.
Yeah, it's not crazy, but it's kind of cool. It's on the South Fork of the Kings River, and it was known to be a favorite spot of John Muir, hence the name. And people go there to picnic, sunbathe, swim, just relax, but I guess the water can be really cold.
We've mentioned John Muir twice now, and for those who don't know, he's considered to be the father of the national parks. We owe a lot to him and his love for nature that encouraged people and lawmakers to appreciate, honor, and protect the natural spaces and places. He argued that millions of acres of forest and the Grand Canyon itself had intrinsic value because of its beauty and not for its economic usage, like for mining or anything. So, and we should lawfully protect them. His work directly influenced the creation of the National Park Service in 1916. And he was also the first president of the Sierra Club. It was his advocacy that was instrumental in establishing Sequoia and Yosemite National Park.
And funny thing, he was born in Scotland.
That's funny.
But so we owe him a lot. So yes, you just said it. The crown jewel probably of them all, Yosemite National Park. So this park is just over 2 hours away from Kings Canyon. So we hop back in the car. And this is an iconic national park for a reason. From the moment you enter the valley, and I want to have like dramatic music playing behind me or something, you drive through like a 3/4 of a mile tunnel, and then you emerge from this tunnel. So it's a grand entrance surrounded by sheer granite cliffs, plunging waterfalls, and absolutely picture postcard views. You can like hear the birds chirping and flying, and it's like I thought I was in a Disney movie. It honestly was. They made that entrance into that park so cinematic.
And everybody's right there.
True.
You've got landmarks like El Capitan, Half Dome, and Bridalveil Falls just dominating the landscape as you come through.
Mm-hmm.
It's honestly hard to know where to look. Like you feel like you're on Tourette's, or you got
Squirrel.
some kind of
Look that way.
squirrel.
Look
Look,
that way.
squirrel. Because you come out of this tunnel and all it's such a huge park that once you enter the main gate, and there's a bunch of different gates to get in, but you've got to drive like 45 minutes just to get to the area where this tunnel brings you into the valley. And then when you come out of this valley, you have all of these things visible. It's like crack.
It's like, wow, why did they hit you with all of it at the same time? Like, pace yourself, Yosemite. But no, it's like, boom. Very, very cool.
The valley floor where you drive into and you come out of this tunnel, it's not that big. It's only about 7 square miles. And the park itself is the size of Rhode Island. So it's a big park.
Oh my gosh. That seems really big. Yosemite has 360 miles of paved roads and over 800 miles of developed trails. But weirdly, it's only the 16th largest park in the U.S.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So if you're wondering what's bigger, the top ones are all in Alaska. But in the lower 48 states, Death Valley, Yellowstone, the Everglades, the Grand Canyon, Glacier, Olympic, Big Bend,
Been there.
and Joshua Tree are all bigger. So that's kind of weird, by acreage or square miles anyway.
Those numbers skew the perception and almost are always irrelevant because Yosemite feels gigantic because of the sheer size of the cliffs and the mountains and the things you're seeing. That everything's the biggest, the best, like that. So everything here is like supersized from the soaring cliffs, and the wow factor is so much that we said, like, quote, unfortunately everywhere you look is stunning and you can't take a picture of it all. You just can't.
We just almost gave up. Like, you just put your phone down, like, forget it. Like, there's just
take it
too
in.
many. Or we just kept wanting, like, stop the car, stop the car, stop the car, stop the car.
We did that a lot.
My mind was blown by Yosemite. To me, this is the big daddy of national parks. As you mentioned, this is the home of El Capitan, one of the world's largest exposed granite monoliths, with a summit of 7,500 feet above sea level. So this is the famous beast that so many rock climbers want to conquer, and many have lost their life trying. But in 2017, Alex Honnold successfully free soloed El Capitan, which means that he climbed it with no protective gear, no ropes, no harness, nothing. He did it in just under 4 hours, and he's the only person to have achieved that feat. And there's actually an Academy Award-winning film that you said you've seen. I haven't seen it.
It's awesome.
I want to watch it, called Free Solo, about his journey. And if you're afraid of heights, you maybe wouldn't like it. I don't know, but I think I would be in awe of his crazy determination with a very big emphasis on crazy.
Yeah, not to be outdone and not far from El Capitan, Yosemite Falls is the tallest waterfall in North America, dropping a total of 2,425 feet. Now, this is just like when you're driving in and driving through, you go past El Capitan, and then, look right next to it, right behind it, here comes Yosemite Falls. It's huge.
That's true.
Epic waterfall in full force. I think Julie said, it's so big, I can see a waterfall within a waterfall, like within a waterfall. And it does have an upper, middle, and lower section, which is why it's called a falls with an S. And some other ones in the park are just a fall, not falls. If the waterfall has a single and distinct vertical plunge, it is called a fall. And if it has a series or a system of cascades, it's called a falls. You're welcome, because we just saved you from being super confused when you see a list of 25 named waterfalls in the park, and some of them end in S and some don't. Most of them do not.
We were like, what the heck is going on here? The national park can't spell,
Yeah.
or they're just, what is the deal between the
trying to be
S and the
special.
no S? I don't know. So that is why they take that very seriously.
But no other parks do this.
No, they don't. And the rangers are very specific. When they refer to a fall or falls, they will make sure they have the S or not the S
Right.
in that park. So very weird. Okay, Yosemite, you do you. So you could just spend the day driving around the valley, pulling over to take pictures of different features. Seriously, there are waterfalls everywhere you look and fantastic mountain vistas, and you'd be happy as a clam just doing that. But we were eager to get out into it. So we asked the ranger at the entrance what a good hike would be to do that was less than 6 miles and with great views, and she immediately replied, take the Mist Trail to Vernal Fall. So that's a good tip. Always ask a ranger.
This was an absolutely gorgeous hike. It turned out to be a total of 6.5 miles with 2,000 feet of elevation gain. That took us a while, so it took us a little over 3 hours. So not your everyday stroll, but we had a lot of fun, and a lion's share of those hours were spent stopping and taking pictures and videos, and it was hard not to. It was so beautiful. We liked playing around with the long exposure function on our phones and the, taking it so that it makes it look like the waterfall is stopped in motion. It makes for phenomenal water shots, especially on waterfalls or rapids. And we got some good ones. There are multiple stopping points on this hike where you can get spectacular views of the fall. But if you keep going, you will quickly understand why this is called the Mist Trail. We basically got soaked. I mean, fully soaked. And if you hike beyond the fall, you will reach a plateau up above the fall where you can get a fantastic perspective looking straight down the waterfall from above. And you can really see and feel the power of that water.
The pictures really can't even do it justice, and we did stop a lot for that, but let's be honest, I also really need to catch my breath. Tony had already been in training for his Camino walk this summer, so he did a lot better than me, but it's early April, so in Minnesota, I hadn't really gotten the chance to get out and walk that much yet, so I definitely felt the elevation gain and that distance on my legs. Whew, that hike was a burner. But thank God we had a hot tub at our hotel that night, and I highly recommend that you find a hotel with one too when you're planning your trip, because I definitely needed that, and it felt great on those sore muscles. So we stayed at the Best Western Cedar Inn and Suites in the town of Angels Camp, which was an hour and a half from Yosemite Park, so plan accordingly if you want to do that. There is lodging inside the park as well, and I would really love to do that next time, but it books up fast. So look at that as soon as you have an inkling that you might want to go there.
It's really important for that because we talked to some other people and they're all they're staying in the park for days where we were only there for that day and then leaving. So for us to stay an hour and a half away from the park wasn't a big deal. But most people don't stay in the park, and it's an hour drive out to their hotel and then it's an hour back in the next day. So it adds up. But back to the hiking situation. If you don't want to do that kind of elevation gain, no problem. There are all kinds of hikes in the park to fit every age, fitness, skill level, time allotment. Like we didn't have that long. We didn't have a lot of time, so we had like 3-4 hours. One of the most challenging hikes, however, is up Half Dome, which everybody wants to do. And we really wanted to do it too, but it wasn't open for the year yet, so I think Julie was a little relieved about that.
Maybe, I don't know.
Heights and elevation.
Not sure.
But Half Dome is approximately a 15-mile round-trip hike with extreme elevation gain. It is a rock that looks like imagine like a big gray ball with half of the bottom, half buried in the ground, and so it sticks up as like a half dome. It is steep and challenging with a cable-assisted final ascent. It also requires a permit that is on a lottery system because so many people want to do it. This tip was passed along to us, so we can't confirm it, but we were told that if you pay for a backcountry camping pass, anyone doing backcountry camping automatically gets a permit to hike Half Dome. So that might be worth checking out if you are, if you had your heart set on doing the hike, but you were afraid you weren't going to be able to get a permit for your time that you had scheduled for your vacation to go to, Yosemite, and you want to do Half Dome. You might not get a pass in the lottery, but if you backcountry camp, you're automatically going to get to.
Okay, some other things that people should know about this park that's interesting. The roads leading into the park have two-way traffic, but once you're into the valley, they go in a one-way loop that's like 30 to 45 minutes around. So there's no oncoming traffic at you. There are multiple lanes and spots to like pull over so you can snap a quick picture. But that one-way circuit kind of surprised us. So, for example, if you needed to go back for something, maybe you forgot an item, or you just wanted more photos of something, doesn't matter. Well, that is not going to be an easy endeavor There are a few connecting corridors that you can traverse, but you might be stuck driving around the loop again, and that would probably make you want to lose your mind.
And if it were summer, you might just decide to leave that item behind because
Yeah.
traffic can be so terrible, they say. And parking lots fill up really fast. So to get there super early, they have to do they do shuttles that pick up and drop off at all the major spots along the loop. And in high season, it is recommended you find a parking spot. Don't move your car, and then because you will likely not find another spot. If you want to like move from El Capitan over to Half Dome, well, you might get over there, and there's so many people in the park, you're not going to get a parking spot. So once you find a parking spot, get it, save it, and then move on.
Well, not move on, get on the
Well,
shuttles.
move on the shuttle and
Yeah.
then go around the park that way, and then take a shuttle back to where your car was.
Right.
It's way easier for movability, but no access to, we didn't have access to many parts of the park and the hiking trails that we really wanted to see because they're not even open for the year. And we couldn't because the higher elevation drives and the vista points, some of them were just, like we said, not even open yet. So to determine the best time of the year for you, you need to look at what places within the park are most important to you.
Yeah, so it's a trade-off. You might miss getting to do certain things in April, but in the summertime, it's jam-packed. So just got to figure it out. Luckily, the big bangs, like viewing El Capitan or Half Dome and Yosemite Falls, they're all accessible during early season. So that still
Viewing
could be...
them is.
Yeah,
Because you can't get
viewing.
on Half Dome,
Right,
but you
viewing.
can view it.
So that could be perfect for you if you want a taste of this park without the crowd and you don't mind that limited availability. Honestly, I don't feel cheated at all. I was perfectly happy with everything that we got to see and do, and it just makes me more excited for our return trip because then we got things, that we have left to see. So suffice it to say, I loved Yosemite, and I've told everyone I know who has not been to make sure they put it on their bucket list. What are your thoughts?
We left there, and I was in so much awe of what we had just seen. And I was like, wow, I wish that we had more time in that park to do Half Dome, to do other hikes, to go closer to Yosemite Falls and, go up and around the backside of El Capitan. There's so many things to do. And then there's the big drive through the majority of the park that we didn't even get to do, which has amazing views too. So I really want to go back. This is a place that I could go, and I wouldn't stay off ground. Like we talk about people that have to drive in and out for an hour. I would find a way to stay. There's a big Grand Hotel in the valley, but there's also those like makeshift tent like campgrounds where they have tents, canvas tents with bunks in them, and I would
But
do that.
we heard that maybe they don't have heat or air conditioning.
They don't,
So it
so-
could be only comfortable for a small part of the
Well,
year.
here's the catch that you have to think about when you're, especially if you're going to doing a road trip this length from bottom to top of California. We haven't even got to the top half of this yet. You're going to give and take on some things. If you're going to do this in the early season, you got snow and you got places that you might not be able to get to, which we did. But if you do it in summertime, you've got all the people and all the other things that come with that
High
make it
heat,
very
maybe.
difficult to see and do more as much as we did because we didn't have any problems with people anywhere we went. So
No,
that's
you know what? I have one big disappointment in Yosemite.
which is
We didn't get to see anybody climbing El Capitan.
right, but that's because they were having weather on the back end of when we were there. So people, I think, weren't going to go. A lot of people will climb and then they'll stay on the face overnight. Like they'll put their tent up on the side of the hill on the cliff.
Yeah, of course.
Stay
Why
overnight.
wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
why wouldn't
Duh.
you? And then they'll just finish up the next morning. But they couldn't do it because there was weather and wind and whatnot.
We had a
So-
little bit of rain that day, like a
Yeah.
tiny little bit, but yeah. Well, I was disappointed about that. But okay, so after Yosemite, we spent the night in Angel Camp, as we mentioned, to knock off some mileage because the next park, Redwood National, was over 8 hours from Yosemite. So this was a long stretch of driving, but
This was the biggest stretch.
driving in California was really beautiful, and we had no idea. So many different kinds of topography, constantly changing, a lot of it really impressive and pretty. You wouldn't even know you were in California. Some of it was flat and boring, but truly not very much. And you can really feel very alone out there in some of the parts. Like 94% of the population of California live in major metropolitan areas. So you're going to pass through a lot of wild and remote country. So remote, in fact, that it's entirely possible that there are other creatures living out here as well.
Yeah.
Doo-doo-doo.
Well, before we get to that, driving, a funny little note, when we were driving from Yosemite, we went up to Tahoe, And then we went over to north of Sacramento and then drove up this valley. And you're driving in this very fertile valley. And you're looking off, you see Sierra Nevadas on your right. And you look over, and I don't even know what the mountains are on the left, but that's one's up against the coast. And you're in this huge valley that goes to the north for hours and hours of driving up this valley. But it's got beautiful views. And we're like, wow, I wonder what this is. Because we don't know that geography very well. We don't know it. And I love geography, but I didn't even know the name of it. I'm like, what's this name of this valley? Because everything seems so far to have a name. So we get on the phones and look it up, and yeah, it's Sacramento Valley. Okay, it's not so exciting of a name, but it was like, wah, wah, wah. I was expecting some cool park name or something. Nope, Sacramento Valley. It was long, like hundreds of miles long.
Yes,
but it brings us up to the north end, which...
where there could be creatures.
Creatures, certainly possible. On our route, we passed through Willow Creek, which is known as the Sasquatch capital of the world because it has the highest concentration of Bigfoot sightings, over 460 of them, and this is the area that is the gateway to the remote Six Rivers National Forest. So who knows what lives out there?
Well, in 1967, two men named Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, they shot 53 seconds of film of what they proclaimed was a Bigfoot walking steadily alongside a river in the nearby Bluff Creek. So that movie, you've probably even...
Everybody's seen it.
You've seen it. Yeah,
If
everybody
anybody's seen anything on Bigfoot, they've seen that grainy video from 1967.
100%. So that movie has been analyzed to death by all kinds of experts, and there's still a lot of disagreement about whether or not it was real. And ironically, just a couple of nights before we passed through this town, we were at our hotel just watching TV at night, and an episode of Josh Gates' Expedition Unknown,
which we
is
love,
one of our favorite shows, and it just happened to be about Bigfoot. And so this was all about this area and that film, and they actually revealed that they have new technology and a new analysis of that film that is actually leans towards legitimizing that video. They think it might be real. So super interesting and totally funny that we were going through that area in just a couple days. So at any rate, this town is all about Bigfoot, and they celebrate with a festival every July where they have vendors, live music, classic car show. And here's what I want to know. They have a Bigfoot calling contest. What's a Bigfoot call?
Oh, yeah.
How do you call a Bigfoot?
You haven't watched enough on Bigfoots because Bigfoots make grunts and sounds and squeals and screeches really loud
Okay,
at
so
night.
give me your best Bigfoot
No,
calling.
because this is a microphone. It would be too loud. It would throw off the volume.
That's a shame. Well, anyway, we like to do local festivals and stuff. We just talked about that in one of our previous podcasts, how important it is to add those local color to your trips. So that could be an interesting one.
Find that one in July.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, some of these areas are remote and towns can be few and far between. So just to make sure you have gas in your tank or know where you can charge your electric car, because it's a long road and not a lot of sometimes very small towns. Also, how in the world are Californians managing their phone communication? I mean, we would go sometimes 45 minutes with no service at all.
45 minutes, way longer.
Yeah, well, I'm abbreviating. I don't want to go too much. It was a lot. It was, oh, now we don't have service. SOS. Now we don't have service. How are they doing it? What services are they using? Do they have landlines at all their homes?
They have
to. Are they using satellite phones? I have no idea what they're doing out there, or they just don't have phones.
I don't know. If you live in remote areas of California, please let us know how you communicate with the rest of the world, because had we had an issue with our car or something, we were SOL.
Yep. And needing SOS.
Yes. So it was a long drive. Let's give our listeners a little bit of visual of where we're at in this point of our road trip. So we've crossed over the state of California from kind of the east central area to the west, and we have finally now made it to the coast. So we sweated in the desert at Joshua Tree. At Joshua Tree, we relished in the shade of the massive trees at Sequoia and Kings Canyon. Then we were awed by the grandeur and majesty of Yosemite. But now we get to see and smell the ocean, and this is finally the California that everybody thinks of.
You know what? I agree with you. I think when people think of California, think of palm trees and the coast and that's California girls.
Well, I know, but that's what people think of, right? Sun and fun and beaches and bikinis.
But all right, so before we jump into Redwood National, we need to shout out to an adorable little town that we stopped at briefly. And I'd been looking at this place. I wanted to stay there, but we just couldn't make that drive all the way to this town, so we stopped off at a midway point. But this little town was so cute. You could soak up the sea views. We enjoyed coffee and breakfast at the Beachcomber Cafe in a town called Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the smallest incorporated cities in California at just under 1 square mile. And fun fact, they have over 200 days of fog per year, but lucky us, it was bright and sunny for us.
It was one of the not 200 days of year of fog.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was great. So we had, oh gosh, I'm still thinking about it sometimes. We had the most delicious vanilla latte with a honey lavender cold foam on top.
It was
so good,
amazing.
and it was blue, so it was like blue like the ocean. It was kind of fun. But then we parked our car at an overlook that was just down at the end of the street from this little cafe. And we just sat there taking in the bay with the unique rock formations jutting out of the ocean. And there were morning kayakers paddling around them. And we could see the harbor seals splashing about and sunning themselves on the rocks. The gulls were soaring and squawking. And it was just such an incredibly pretty and peaceful like vignette. And I can see why people live by the ocean. It was lovely.
We wanted to spend some time near the ocean because, we've been spending so much time inland that when we finally get there, like I had planned something, it would be a quick little jaunt into Sumeg State Park. It's renowned for having one of the best beaches in Northern California for finding agates.
Ooh.
And we paid a small entry fee. Sadly, the America the Beautiful Pass does not work in state parks. Not all of them.
Bummer.
But we did, we hiked a short distance down a really cool, pretty trail that brings you down to the ocean. And then we had an agate hunting competition, Julie and I.
It wasn't really a competition.
Well, I won. So, yeah, it was. But if you listened to our podcast on the Bay of Fundy, Nova Scotia, you already knew that we enjoy searching for agates and sea glass or anything like that on the ocean shoreline. We love looking for things and finding them.
Well, we've never been good beach sitters. Like sitting on a lawn chair or a lounger, it's not really our gig. And it wasn't warm enough to do that anyway this day. But we always enjoy a good hunt. So, yes, it turns out that you were much more successful at finding the ocean agates, which are really different, by the way. They're like more opaque than the
They're
agates.
like a creamy white.
Yeah, they're totally different. So my eye just didn't catch them as easily. But the ones we find like in the North Shore of Lake Superior in Minnesota are more red, kind of like a reddish with swirls.
With like really bright line delineations.
Yeah, like striations, like around like a tree has those circles,
Yep.
kind of like that. But
Tree rings.
anyway, it was just really nice to hear the waves crashing, to walk in the sand, have the sun shining down on us, and relax for a little bit. It was a really nice park, and I appreciated you finding that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
While we could have stayed there seriously all day.
my back would have been killing me.
Yeah,
though, 'cause
no
you're
kidding. We're
bent
bending
over.
over looking
Yeah.
because you got to get down low. But we had to keep moving. So our next stop was Redwood National Park proper. Let me explain. So Redwood National Park, that is actually not the name, even though that's what most of us all call it. People in general just refer to it as Redwood National Park. The actual name is Redwood National and State Parks. the area is rich with California, state parks, and the national park is right there as well. So 3 of the state parks teamed up with the Redwood National Park to combine forces so they could co-manage them together because they're all in the same area and they all have the same topography and geography and stuff. But there was 3 parks, and by the way, Sumeg was not one of them, so we had to pay to get into that one. But the other 3 state parks, America the Beautiful Pass, works because it's all part of the
Conglomeration.
Redwoods National and State Parks.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Cliff Clavin here for you.
So for those of you wondering what the difference is between the sequoias that we saw earlier and the redwoods that we're going to be talking about now, well, the redwoods are actually just coastal sequoias. They are the tallest trees on Earth because of their proximity to the Pacific Ocean. So it's a more stable climate there with a lot of fog, the fog that we mentioned earlier. And this consistent water to the canopy allows for the rapid vertical growth. So they can actually grow like 6 to 8 feet per year, as opposed to the 2 feet per year on the average of the inland sequoias in the other 2 parks that we visited already.
That's our newer growth trees, by the way. It's not like the biggest ones are not growing at that kind of speed. The ones that have been around for 1,000+ years, it's the newer growth ones that are growing at that higher rate.
That's true. And the inland trees, because they have to survive at a higher elevation and they have colder temperatures and they have really hot and dry summers, they subsist on the snowmelt for a lot of their water, and that's not being delivered all the time. So this causes them to grow kind of wide and slow instead of the tall and fast.
So a tip for Redwood, don't just stick to the main highway. Take one of the scenic drives like Newton B. Drury Scenic Parkway to really get immersed into the forest. We enjoy driving amongst the trees, these giants, just for fun. But we pulled over on the side of the road and hiked in just on a deer trail because it was, we had a place to ourselves, and you can get your own private audience with the redwoods. It was quiet, wonderful. It was what you wanted to be where nobody else was.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah, it was very fun. You just get your own pictures and you don't always have to follow the crowd. So fun fact, the tallest known tree in the world
This time by height.
by height, is named Hyperion, which is a very
It's a great name.
great name for a tree. It's technically hidden, somewhere in this park and stands over 379 feet tall. So the exact location is kept off park maps, and they do that for a reason. They really want it to keep it secret so they can protect it. But that said, you can find its location online. People have found it, but please don't attempt to visit it because it could cost you a $5,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. So let's respect the park and maybe just stay out of the off-limits area. As
they have
tempting
cameras.
as you were to do that, right? But
Oh,
yes,
I wanted to so badly.
probably cameras everywhere. And what are you going to do? Take another picture of the big tree?
Yeah, and you probably can't even see the top of it because the canopy of the other trees are keeping, like this tree. Oh, I look up there and I can see bark going up, but you can't see the top. So
True, it's probably
you need to
so
see that
close.
tree from a distance profiled because that tree stands so far above all the other trees around it that when you're down on the ground at the base of it, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell.
Yeah.
But if you're a mile away or a half a mile away looking at that tree, you'll see just how
Be head
incredible
and shoulders above.
But
Cool,
So,
cool.
after leaving Redwoods, we had an almost 4-hour drive ahead of us because we had planned a detour into Oregon. So now we're leaving California
Briefly.
temporarily into Oregon for a bonus stop at Crater Lake National Park. Now, this is one park that we just did not want to miss because if you're already up at Redwoods and you're in the northwest corner, Crater Lake is a hard one to get to if you're coming from other places. But if you're already at Redwoods, you're like, come on, what's a 4-hour drive? Let's just
I know, we've already
jaunt over
driven how
there.
many hours?
Yeah, we've already done so much that it's just doing one more. Although we did stop about an hour and a half short of Crater Lake to stay in Medford. And then the next morning when we got up early, when we're driving up to Crater Lake, we stopped about 10 miles shy of Crater Lake because we saw a sign for Rogue Gorge, whatever that was. We didn't know because we didn't have it on our plans. And we just stopped in there because it looked cool. And we stopped and it was amazing.
I was so surprised by the stop because we're just driving along and all of a sudden, like, you just pull the car over and dip into this parking lot. So I was like, okay, cool. What are we doing now? So I was really eager to get to Crater Lake, but I'm really glad that we stopped because it was fantastic. We did a short walk along the Rogue River Gorge, and it offers a gorgeous perspective, which I'm now realizing that's probably where that word came from. But it has a raging river that is forcing itself through a former lava tube. So there are vibrant green mossy rocks on the edges, and then there's just massively powerful shooting water and plunging waterfalls. This is all in a really little area. So it is so pretty. You could spend 10 minutes here or a few hours, but don't miss it.
So after that, on to Crater Lake. We entered from the south side, and at this time of year, it was the only entrance, sadly. The rim drive was not open yet either, and typically does not open until May or June, so we knew that we were not going to be able to get to go along the rim all the way around the top of the rim. So don't be surprised if it's blocked. You can probably and should probably check the website before you go about weather, because 2 days prior, before us going there, 2 days before, they were closed. Like, everything was closed up at top. You couldn't even go up to where we wanted to go.
They had a snowstorm, right?
They had a snowstorm. So we were like, we might be driving up there and not be able to even go up and see the lake. It would have been devastating. But we did check, and we did find out 2 days before that, we were going to be able to get in. So we did go. And then you just have to be satisfied with the fact that you're going to go up there, and then you park at the visitor center, and you're at the top, and you see, tromp through the snow a little bit for the views, and that's all you're going to get to see on that trip.
Yeah, so just like Yosemite, I was totally satisfied with that. Crater Lake is just stunning. So it is just shy of 2,000 feet deep, which makes it the deepest lake in the United States. And it's the only one that was not created by glacier movement. So instead, it was formed 7,700 years ago as a result of a volcanic explosion. And Wizard Island, which is like this unique formation that sits out in the middle of the lake, that was debris from the eruption.
Crater Lake is also really famous for the color of its water. The brilliant blue is attributed to the extreme clarity, which has been recorded at a depth of 143 feet. It's for visibility. That is absolutely incredible, and it is primarily due to the fact that there is no rivers or sediment flowing into it. It's just fed almost entirely by rain and snow that falls on the surface.
I have to say, I mean, don't you think that of all the parks we visited, we probably got the most stunning photos from here?
Yeah.
I mean, it was sunny and the snow was sparkly and that blue of the lake, it was like magical to me. I don't know.
By the way, I just want to go back and clarify something. That depth of 143 feet of visibility, it's not the most in the world, according to, I think it's called Blue Lake or something lake in New Zealand. But that lake, I listened to a podcast about somebody talking about this, and that person was bitter because the disc, that they take a disc with black and white coloring on it and they drop it into the water and it goes down a certain distance, and if you can still see it, that's the clarity level. You get keep on measuring it, but it's going on a rope that goes down or a cable. Well, when you lose track of seeing it, that's the depth, the final visibility distance. Well, the people in New Zealand, there has been a disc that is, by the way, forever, that measures, it's a certain circumference. It's, let's say, 7 inches around or 8 inches around or whatever it is. That's what everybody uses around the world. Well, New Zealand had a clear lake too, and they thought, well, you kind of lose track of that after a while because it's
got to
so
get
far
dark
away.
the deeper you
Right,
go.
because it gets too far. So they made a bigger disc so that it could be seen from farther distance. Well, that's not apples to apples. That's apples to oranges. They had a bigger disc so they could see the disc farther down. So Crater Lake could be the clearest in the world. We don't know because they're not measured the same way.
Why don't they just, I mean, with today's technology, why don't they have a light up disc?
It's something, right?
Doesn't seem that
That
hard.
would be universal. Well, you know what? The other people are going to use a different device so that they can say that they have the clearest lake.
Well, also, to point of clarification, when I said that Crater Lake is the deepest, I think Tahoe is actually the deepest in the country, but Crater Lake is the deepest that's formed by not a glacier.
All these clarifications.
We just don't want people being like, that's not it. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, the photos that we got there that day, they're amazing. I just think they were fantastic. And even though there was snow everywhere, like we weren't really that cold.
It didn't bother us at all.
No, we could just follow in other people's footsteps, so our shoes really didn't even get like very wet. So yeah, it wasn't maybe the most ideal conditions, and I could see how it would be really fun to see the lake in the summertime and hike around and be able to do some cool things in that area. But it was no less beautiful because it was wintertime, don't you think?
I agree. I think that it is a stunningly beautiful place for some photos. If you were going to spend some time and hike and do the rim and do the drive and stay there and maybe be able to hike down to the water's edge, you can't do that this time of year.
It's a steep crater.
So we drove a long ways to be able to drive up, park, walk up, walk along a rim for maybe a few, 400 or 500 yards. And that was about it. And that was okay because really, you want to see the lake. You want to see the beautiful view and the blue colors. And we got that. It was a crystal clear day, no clouds for us. So that was special. A lot of times you can get there and you go up to Crater Lake and there's a fog or a layer of clouds inside the rim.
I would have
and you
cried.
can't even see the water. Now that would be, that would suck.
I would have cried. Yeah, seriously. That would have been sad if we were already limited in the things that we were able to do there, and then to have the one thing that we could do would be to see it taken away from us. That would have been,
And you're driving a long ways to get to it.
yeah, it's not like just a hop, skip, and a jump up there.
And that was our last park. So for us to have the success that we had with weather at all of the parks was kind of amazing.
Well, okay, so that wraps up the 6 national parks that we visited on this trip, and that was
But wait, there's more.
spectacular lineup. So we had desert landscapes, to alpine forests, to coastal giants, and the volcanic lakes. This road trip really did have a little bit of everything, but we are not done yet. because it would be really remiss of us if we didn't mention a couple or a few other fantastic spots that aren't national parks, but that you should really try and see while you're in this area.
Especially if you're going to take the route that we did and go from the south to the north. And when you get up to, you could be at Crater Lake and go up to Portland and fly out from there, but we were flying out of Reno. So we had to go back down like about a 6-hour drive from Crater Lake.
True, we had some backtracking. Most people probably wouldn't do what we did.
They might go that way because maybe you fly into Reno, you go down, you do Death Valley, then you kind of loop back up around, and then you come. And it would be
It's kind of a circuit.
It would be a total perfect circle, but route loop. But the people that would just take it from point A to B and then fly out of Portland, that might be another option. But we were going back to Reno, and these next stops all were on a path that we made from Crater Lake down to Reno. So it was a very, and we could see some of these things like Shasta we're going to talk about. We've been seeing that for days. So anyways, when we left Crater Lake, we drove south, leaving the snow and finding ourselves in the higher heat again. When you come down, it was like 13 miles downhill. And we got to hit 2 national monuments. We got, I'm going to butcher this, but Tule Lake National Monument and the adjacent Tule Lake National Wildlife Refuge, as well as the Lava Beds National Monument. The Wildlife Refuge was fun for me because it's spring migration, and there were tens of thousands of birds on the lake and on the refuge, feeding and congregating at this lake before they continued on their migration. So, for most people, it's a drive-by.
Well, and there was also tens of thousands of bugs.
Yeah, there was.
You open the car door, and it was like, holy mama, they were swarming everywhere. And then if you open your car door, you just get a whole bunch of bugs inside. I was like, I think I'll just wait over here. No problem. You have fun.
Well, it was beautiful, though.
It was beautiful. I agree with that. And we did see swarms of birds. Now, that's probably not what they call them, but like...
Swarms?
See,
Depends on what
I'm
kind of
not
birds
a
you're talking about.
birder. But big groups that were like...
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I'm moving on. All right, so the Tule Lake National Monument is also a quick stop because it hadn't opened for the season yet. The monument refers to a series of buildings that were used as an internment camp for the Japanese during World War II. So I always kind of wondered where those were. You hear about them in the
Way
history
out in the middle
books,
of
and
nowhere.
you just never knew where all those things. Well, now I know. So you can park your car in the small little lot that's right on the edge of the road, and you can view the compound. Everything's in plain sight right there. It's not the most exciting thing to see. It's just a bunch of buildings, barns, whatever. Apparently, in the summer, you can actually take tours of the camp if you want to, so it would probably be more impactful for you then. That was a very sad time in our American history, but it was interesting for us to just take a note of it along our way, spend some time thinking about it, talking about it, and then moving down the road.
And just down the road from that is Lava Beds National Monument, and this place was really cool. So when you're driving here, you feel like you're on the moon. It's all this volcanic landscape. It's very stark with rugged black rocks that are just, it looks like rough black sandpaper that had been blown up to a huge floor of the canyon and where you're at, and it just
Can't even
looks,
get pictures of it, really.
Taking pictures, it doesn't do it anything. You just got to look at it and go, that how could you ever even cross that? It was very neat. So that was probably at that point coming from the refuge, which was really nearby. It was really unique. Coming from this water and lake, all of a sudden you have this lava bed of
It
black
transitioned
organic.
quickly.
Very quick.
From like grassland to whatever that was. So people come to this area, they hike, they explore, they go caving, because there's over 800 lava tubes. And we only had time to pop into a couple of them, Indian Well and Mush Pot, which is kind of fun.
Is it mush pot or mush pot? I don't know.
You know what? I think we pronounced it Mush Pot that day, and I don't know why I just called it Mush Pot.
I don't know.
It doesn't really
'cause
make
I was
sense.
Like, you just said mush pot, and I'm like, isn't it mush pot?
I think you're right. I think it's Mush Pot.
Once again, a podcast where we argue pronunciation, but neither one of us know
Oh,
this
for
one.
the love. Yeah. So you could actually spend a lot of time at this place, but don't forget your water. Like, it's hot and it's remote, and we didn't see hardly anybody. I think we saw 2 people while we were there. But another thing that we saw, technically still within the lava beds and that park, was Petroglyph Point. So there are over 5,000 prehistoric carvings on the cliff face here. They're mostly geometric patterns, kind of human stick figures, animals. And the rock cliff is protected by wire fencing, but you can stick your phone through and you can get some photos of the petroglyphs. It was kind of cool. It was interesting, and another just really quick cultural and historical stop. And by the way, if you're curious like we were about the difference between a national park and a national monument, we had to look this up because we're like, what is the difference again? So national parks are usually vast scenic landscapes with broad recreational appeal, while national monuments usually refer to smaller cultural or scientific sites. Now, technically, the Lava Beds National Monument could be a national park, but it doesn't have enough appeal. It's out there in the middle of nowhere, and it just doesn't have enough appeal to the broader public. So it's still just a national monument. And both of those things are protected and funded very differently. But
From
that's
different
kind of a
sources.
nutshell answer for you.
So one thing about that petroglyphs that I found fascinating is that when you talk about this, these thousands of them, you're looking at a huge sheer rock cliff, right? And it goes up hundreds and hundreds of feet, and it's beautiful. But all of the petroglyphs are in the bottom, let's say 15 feet off the ground, like 15, 20 feet max. And not even that high, probably about 10 to 15 feet. They would stand on other rocks, and that's at the whole base of the petroglyph all the way across, which is really kind of cool because you walk for about a quarter mile and it's just one after another, after another, after another. They couldn't get up on the cliff and do it in the middle of the cliffs. You're just talking at the very base of this giant mountain. It's kind of
And we didn't
kind of
walk all
bizarre.
the way around it. We weren't motivated. It was hot. We weren't motivated enough to go all around that structure.
We got pretty close to the end though. It does stop at one point, probably about a little over a quarter mile away. So it's pretty neat. I like that place a lot.
Yeah, it was fun.
So we left our monuments and drove a couple more hours to Mount Shasta, the town, just after the town of Weed, by the way. So this should tell you a little bit about what
We
we're going to talk about.
contemplated staying in Weed, but we
So the town of Weed is just before Mount Shasta, the town, which is at the base of Mount Shasta. But we stayed there for one night, and then we got up really early the next morning because we wanted to do a hike on Mount Shasta itself. Now, you can see this huge mountain looming in the distance from over 100 miles away, and it has been calling us like a siren. We saw it as we were driving north in Sacramento Valley to go out to Redwoods on the coast before we went up to Oregon, before we came down to the non-monuments, and now we back. So you can see this mountain from all over the place. And we got some really good recommendations from the front desk guy at our hotel who said, hey, head up to Bunny Flats Trailhead parking lot on Mount Shasta. And here's a good tip also. If you want to get a really pretty photo or just a really good drive up the mountain to Bunny Flats. You can take a great picture of the mountain there with you in the foreground or whatever you want. And you get all the views from the drive up as well. But that's where we went up to go hiking. You don't have to hike if you do that, though.
yeah, it's just a great spot for a photo. Like, period, end of day, exclamation part. Okay, so we met some climbers in the parking lot, and they were preparing for a 2-day summit expedition. And they suggested that we hike up to Horse Camp. That would be like a good stopping spot for us if we only wanted to do a little bit. So that's exactly what we did. It was 2 hours up and back. It was 3.6 miles, and it was 90% snowpack. But like Tony hiked in shorts and a long sleeve shirt
And tennis shoes.
yeah, and we were fine. It was so pretty on this hike, but we also thoroughly entertained ourselves along the way because, oh my gosh, I have to tell you what we read about Mount Shasta.
And here we go.
It's crazy. So Mount
By
Shasta.
the way, the next town over is Weed. Just want us to say it again. All right, go
Is
ahead.
there a crystals nearby?
Exactly.
So Mount Shasta is recognized on a global, literally global level as the powerful spiritual energy vortex and the Earth's root chakra, like the base chakra for the Earth. It is a sacred site to indigenous people, and it draws all kinds of visitors, not only, of course, for its natural beauty and its hiking and people who like to go up to the summit, but also because of its really unique lore. So we learned that there are apparently advanced beings called Lemurians from a lost continent that may live in a subterranean city called Telos that exists somewhere beneath Mount Shasta. Some people have claimed to have seen these Lemurians, and they describe them as 7-foot-tall beings with long hair and often wearing flowing white robes.
Okie dokie.
Hey, you never know.
So, by the way, when you're in Mount Shasta, the town, every other store sells crystals or
Has readings.
sounding bowls, whatever those things.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
Those were pretty. But there's a lot of people with alternative lifestyles and beliefs about Lemurians and whatnot around this area. So
We are not
Judging.
saying, yeah, no
We're not judging.
judgment, no judgment at all. It was a highly fascinating
It was
story
so
to read. In the
fascinating.
car when I was reading this while you're driving, I'm like, what? We have never heard of this before.
We talked about this for hours.
Unbelievable.
It's pretty fascinating, the history. If you do want to do a little research, look back at where it came from and how and what these people are from. These Lemurians are not from there. They were somewhere else, and they moved into the lava tubes and tunnels and
There's
cities
stories
underneath
about
shifts.
like Pangea, and then when the continents split, and maybe they were from Atlantis.
I wanna learn
There's-
more.
It was actually very interesting.
The area around Mount Shasta also has really strange cloud formations, and apparently has had a lot of UFO sightings reported here. Needless to say, we were glad to finish our hike without encountering aliens, Lemurians, or not to mention mountain lions or bears.
Yeah, we were like, oh my gosh, I hope that's not a bear. I hope it's not a Lemurian. Hope it's not an alien. Like we were far too entertained with ourselves.
It was fun.
That potential made the hike much more interesting to have all of those things going on. So, okay, we know that this podcast is getting as long as the state of California itself,
Ba-dum-bum.
but that's the point. I know, right? But there's just so much to share. California has an embarrassment of riches, a genuine gold mine of natural beauty everywhere. Oh, and speaking of gold mines, we didn't even discuss the plethora of cute, like former mining towns that you could go visit, some of which we actually stayed in,
Yep.
but we just cannot cover it all. So we're going to leave you with one more spot to go before we give you our final thoughts and wrap this all up.
So one last stop, and this, ties back to Mount Shasta. So we were working our way down from Crater Lake down to Reno. So this was after Mount Shasta. It's a park called MacArthur Burney Falls Memorial State Park, blah, 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 blah. Could that be any longer of a name? So this was another one of the recommendations from our hotel guy, but it was a ways away from Mount Shasta. So we debated whether we were going to go. And then when we got there, there was a $10 fee. And we're like, okay, this is a waterfalls park. And we weren't set on seeing another waterfall. We had seen a lot of waterfalls over 11 days. So can you imagine? So at the ranger station, and we're talking to this woman ranger, and she's like, no, you got to go. We're like, really? I mean, this is $10. I mean, we just came from all like Yosemite and all these other places. She goes, just go. You got to try it. I'm like, okay. She convinced us, and we paid the fee. And as we joked with her as we were going in, we're like, all right, we're going to be coming back for our money in a few minutes if it wasn't amazing. And then we didn't see her for another 2 hours.
At least. So just go see it. These falls were nicknamed the eighth wonder of the world by President Teddy Roosevelt, and that guy knew his nature. There are over 1 million gallons of water that flow daily over this fall, and it doesn't even change year-round because the water comes from the underground springs that are fed from Mount Shasta's snowmelt. And keep in mind that Mount Shasta is over 14,000 feet. It has snow year-round, and within it 7 glaciers that are near the peak that have permanent ice. So we took so many photos of this waterfall. It was ridiculous.
So many.
We're like, we've got to go. We're hungry. We need to go.
And this is after 11 days of taking pictures of waterfalls and
Yeah.
and other
Lots of
national
waterfalls.
parks. This is just a state park. We knew nothing about it. And when we went, we were gobsmacked when we walked over to the edge and looked it down. We're like, oh my goodness, this is
I read some blogs,
amazing.
and people said this is their favorite waterfall in the entire country.
Yeah.
Like it's,
And we almost drove past it.
yeah, well, California, they got too many.
We could drone on and on about this place forever, but let's do some rapid fire questions to end up. Julie, what are your top 3 parks in order from this trip?
Oh, okay. Yosemite, number 1.
I'll go with you on that. I'll say Yosemite.
Okay. I think, and now we have a lot left undone, right? Of course. But with what I know, I'd say Crater Lake, number 2. So that's not even in California. And number 3, I think I'm going to say Joshua Tree.
I will say Yosemite 1, Redwoods 2,
Huh.
and I will say Joshua Tree 3.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Now that goes into our next questions, maybe.
Well, yeah. So I want to know which park you would most like to go back to and spend a little bit more time at, maybe even like go camping in it or something.
Yosemite for sure. I want to stay in the park, and I want to be able to go do Half Dome and a bunch of other things there. There's so much there.
Yeah, I agree.
I could spend a lot of time there.
We got to do some research on how you can book some of those places in the park, and I have a feeling they're not cheap.
No.
That's going to be a bummer, but
All right. which parks would you skip if you had to? If you had to skip on this route that we did, which ones would pick one or two?
Okay, so ironically, I'd probably skip some of the trees. I love trees. I mean, they're great. Big trees are cool. I think you need to pick one, Sequoia or Kings Canyon. And I did read ahead of time from somebody that said, just go to Kings Canyon. Skip Sequoia because it's so darn busy and not incrementally better than Kings Canyon. So like go to Kings Canyon. You're going to get as much bang for your buck. You're going to have way less crowds. Just go do that. And in hindsight, we could have maybe done that, except it wasn't a problem because we had no people. But in summertime, you would. So I think I would do that. I think I would skip Sequoia, perhaps, and the General Sherman. And then I would also maybe skip Redwood.
Okay, so now you just
I know. That's why you surprised me
so
when you
here's
said.
where I would say this. I couldn't agree more on Sequoia. Sequoia is a big tree. All right, it's Sherman. But Canyon, we didn't get to see canyons with all the canyon aspect of
Yeah,
it.
the Yosemite
so we
and Grand
don't
Canyon.
know what that looks like or could be. So we only got to see General Grant. So if I had to on this road trip at this time of year, I would skip both of those and go and spend a second day in Yosemite. And I would just say, I'm going to see big trees in Redwood. And I liked the trees in Redwoods better than I liked in Sequoia. They're narrow, but they're so tall. And they look more grand to me.
Stately.
And you got the ocean right there. So you got the ocean and the trees and the landscape is so much prettier to me than Sequoia and Kings Canyon.
That just didn't feel like a defined park to me, though. It just felt like it was like, oh, it's just kind of all over. So
It's basically the whole area up in northwestern. Basically,
Yeah.
take the little chunk of northwestern California, and that's Redwoods National
yeah, so
State and
it
state
didn't feel
parks.
like a distinct little park, I guess.
All right,
in
now
my
take all that comes
head.
with it. If you're going to go up to Redwoods, you get Trinidad, and you get Sumeg, and you get the beach and agates. You get the coast. You get, kayaking. You get the trees. You get
All right,
hiking.
so it's just a very.
There's
I
a lot
just
more.
think about it in my head a lot differently than the other ones, I guess.
All right,
But
well, you're
okay,
wrong.
no, I mean I don't necessarily disagree with that. Okay, so how excited are you to be able to come home and put all those cute little triangle stickers on your water bottle?
I did a little video for TikTok about it where I have a water bottle that has little triangle stickers of all the national parks, and I got to take and put 6 new ones on my bottle. And by the way, we didn't talk about Lassen. Lassen is after you go to Bernie, the falls, and we just talked about most recently, and you're driving back to Reno. It's out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. I mean, Lassen is way out in the middle of nowhere.
So I didn't get to go to this one. You went to
But
this
you
with
could
our
see it
daughter.
from a distance. It is a very, very tall single-layer peak. And when I went there with our daughter, we went there a year ago. We drove up from Tahoe, and we drove up there just to see this park. And it's a long, long drive, 45 minutes drive up to the top of this peak, right? And the views are incredible. It's worth the drive up top, but that's what the park is. I mean, I would not say you have to get there, and you didn't get to see it, but you could see it from a distance.
But
and
wasn't it closed? We couldn't anyway.
No, if we had tried to go there, we would have got down to the base level of the park only, and the road up was closed. So you wouldn't have got to see anything. You got to see a mountain from a distance. That's it.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing to skip, and we continued on to Reno. But no, I loved my water bottle, and I'd already had Lassen on there, but I now got to put these on. I have now been to over half the national parks. So I have 30 left.
Okay,
I've been to
so
32.
We've already discussed like some of the ones that are super difficult and ones that I don't have to do this checklist that you do. I don't feel the need to.
I acquire.
Yeah, you acquire for sure.
So that's where we're at.
Okay, well, I think this concludes our epic Arizona, California, Oregon road trip of all the national parks and some
Thank you
state
for
parks
listening
and
this
some
long.
national monuments and blah, blah, blah. We hope you found it really informative and maybe it helps you plan a future trip. And we hope that it was entertaining in some spots. We cannot wait to have you as captive listeners sometime again very soon. But for now, we hope you have a fun trip on the books so that you can wheels up.